The sky over Vigilum-Kyr tears open like silk, pulled too tight over iron. It begins as a white seam drawn east to west across ash-brown cloud, above a hive whose mornings are rationed by smog domes and luminal grids. Vox masts avalanche static. Hab block loudspeakers cough, then die. For one held breath, the city stills. Pilgrims freeze mid-step on cliffside stairs. Freight chains sway over abyssal streets. Heat pours through the seam. Dry, clean heat that smells like sun on old stone. A shape drops out of the white wound and hits a manufactorum roof with a bell note clang. Shock ripples outward. Raptor claws of lightning climb the spires. Pressure swings. Doors blow inward. Dust plumes down stairwells. Sirens try to wake, but choose prayer instead. The shape stands, pats himself down as if he expects pockets to apologize, and squints at a world that was never meant for his eyes. Middle-aged, soft around the middle, white shirt, green trousers, a belt that was never designed to hold anything more than habit. He blinks. He takes a breath. He says a name, a home, as if those syllables might rebuild a smallest bridge across the impossible. When the air gives him nothing, he looks down at the void-threaded streets and the crouched millions, and does what he has always done without thinking. He tries to help. He hears something then. The low thunder of a smog tram, out of control. Its mag skid sparking luminous tears along the rail. On the platform below, a convoy of pilgrim families grips battered icons and each other. The tram screams on. No guardrail designed in any century could hold what is coming. He moves. He is not swift as lightning. He is quick as a remembered joke. His feet slip. The roof edge crumbles. He pinwheels arms with a ridiculous flail that should end with gravity laughing last. But he does not fall. Reality, in his presence, adjusts its expectations. He skids down a slick side of the manufactorum like a child on a banister, 3 kilometers tall. Shoes squealing, hands throwing sparks. His belt snags on an extruding rivet. He slingshots. He lands beside the rail with knees that compress like springs and rebound. A cartoon's flexibility rides through meat and bone. No fracture, only wobble. He plants his feet, palms out, and the tram slams into his hands. Metal shrieks. The rail moans. The world expects carnage. Instead, palms and steel argue in stuttering syllables, and the tram slows as if through syrup until, inches from the cowering pilgrims, it thumps against his chest and stops. Silence. Then a sound like an exhale shared by 100 throats. He smiles, awkward, sheepish, as if embarrassed by being looked at. "Hey," he says to a terrified child clutching a tin saint. "It's okay." He waggles his fingers. "I'm okay. You're okay." The child laughs, a small bell in smog. Above, in a command room layered with cogitators and patched brass, men and women with haunted eyes watch through Auspex feeds. The Lord Governor of Vigilum-Kyr, a lean woman named Marla Orpheon, hair scraped back hard enough to be a policy, leans toward the screen. "Emperor's light," she whispers. "What is that?" Beside her, in shadow that is deliberate and practiced, stands the Inquisitor. He is tall without being imposing, thin without weakness. His name is Kestis Vale. The rosette at his throat is the only concession to ornament. He watches the arriving anomaly with the stillness of an executioner, listening for a heartbeat under a hood. "Abomination or angel," he says softly. "We will discover which before either prayer or pride condemns this world." On the ground, the man, Peter Griffin, though no one here knows a Griffin from a Griffin guard, turns toward a new scream. A catwalk has buckled. Thousands of workers on the shift change go tumbling toward the chasm between hive spires, hands clawing the air that will become a wall if they hit it fast enough. Peter looks down at his hands as if asking if they are allowed to do more. They are. He inhales. He stretches. His arms lengthen past reason, past proportion, rubbery, ridiculous. and his fingers sweep and catch falling bodies like a net made of intention. He bounces them up, down, up again to bleed velocity, then slides them onto safe platforms with a cringe smile and, sorry about the bounce, that no one hears but many feel. He does not fly. He falls with choice. He does not deflect bullets. They hesitate to be fatal around him. He is not invulnerable. He is inconvenient to hurt. The universe around him does not so much obey as negotiate. Word spreads through the teeming miles. A stranger dropped from a tear in the sky and saved a tram, saved a shift, saved a little boy, in a place that has learned to distrust miracles because knives often hide in them. Gratitude arises anyway, raw and dangerous as a flame in an oxygen line. Peter rescues until his breath goes ragged. He drinks from a cracked cistern and finds it tastes like old nails. He pets a hive dog the size of a pony and doesn't flinch when it licks his face with a sandpaper tongue. When the first Arbites arrive, carbines shouldered, he lifts his hands and keeps his fingers visible. "Sir," the sergeant barks, voice tempered by awe and training. "You will kneel." Peter looks at his knees. "Kneeling's tough on these," he admits, and kneels anyway, joints popping like old jokes. They take him to the governor's spire through tunnels painted with admonitions. People press against barricades and whisper prayers and slurs. Some spit at him. Others touch the hem of his rumpled shirt and weep. His eyes go wet, and he doesn't know why, except that he has always been susceptible to other people needing things. In the spire, under a fresco of the Emperor burning traitors clean, the governor, the Inquisitor, and a half-dozen officers in dull armor consider him. Peter looks at the fresco, looks at the faces, looks at the smog-choked light crawling over the floor. The governor speaks first, voice carrying the saw edge of someone who learned to be heard in rooms that did not want to listen. "You saved lives. For that, Vigilum-Kyr owes you thanks. I am Marla Orpheon. I govern here by his will and the Administratum's permission. Who are you?" "Peter," he says. He swallows. "Peter Griffin." He waits to hear laughter. "There is none. I don't know how I got here. A minute ago I was somewhere else. With my family." The word catches. "I didn't mean to make trouble." "You did not make trouble," the governor says. "You averted it. Our gratitude is real." The Inquisitor's gaze is a knife cataloging a throat. "From where did you come, Peter Griffin?" "Quahog." He says it as if it should mean something in any galaxy. He adds, with the helpless reflex to explain, "It's in Rhode Island." Blank faces. "It's in... Never mind." "Are you a psyker?" the Inquisitor says. "I don't think so." Peter frowns, rubs his arm, remembers his arm reaching too far, and frowns harder. "I'm just me. Nothing is just what it is," the Inquisitor says. "Not here." An Astartes stands at the back. Their presence is a rumor made muscle. His pauldrons are black and white, his helm marked with a cross like an oath. He does not speak. He does not need to. The governor cuts into the tension with authority that has saved worlds. Whatever he is, he saved thousands. "We have a crisis, Inquisitor Vale." Vox relays out of the Ash Halo report cult activity uprising. Something else is coming. The smog dome glowed. "The tear. Did you see the tear?" "We all saw the tear," the Inquisitor says. "It was not of the Imperium, as our lex mechanics understand it. But its shape will have been noticed. If it is a door, it will not remain a private one." As if summoned by context, the Auspex pits shudder. Tech adepts hiss prayers and kick housings. A junior officer turns ashen. "Translation spikes, my lord. Multiple. Outer orbits. Unknown vector. The void is boiling." The governor's jaw locks. "Sound the ecclesiarchal horns. Ready the bastion shields. Put the districts into prayer and ration. And you." She looks at Peter with something like a plea disguised as command. "Whatever you are, if you can do it again, do it for my people." Peter nods once. Okay. He will never not say yes when someone calls him. My people. The void boils. Gates flower open. Not like neat Navis transits, but like teeth cutting through gums. A fleet hurtles through that dirty berth. Its ships are Baroque castles grafted to spearheads. Its colors are a theology. Its vox chant is a sermon of murder. Broken sigils writhe on their flanks as if ashamed. The raiders of the ruinous powers have smelled a tear and come to infect it with meaning. The first wave is not subtle. It is always easier to trample than to tempt. Drop barges punch the atmosphere, leaving contrails of screaming. Peter looks up, shading his eyes. He does not have a cape. He has a shirt, stained, and a tie that went missing long ago. He has a chest that still carries the warmth of a child's quick laugh from an hour ago. He squares that chest to the sky and whispers, "Please." Flame sears. The barges open their maws. Cultists and twisted Astartes tumble out, teeth bared, weapons already remembering blood. They fall toward hab blocks and prayer squares with the arrogance of gravity. Peter steps onto the edge of a transit bridge and jumps the wrong way. Sideways, into air, into narrative. His shoes spin as if on tiny wheels. He hits a hab wall, runs along it, then flings himself like a thrown pie into the path of the first falling barge. He grabs its lip. Hands burn. He pulls. The barge shudders. Inside, traitor Marines bellow, surprised to be part of slapstick. The vector changes. The barge carums off a cathedral spire, ricochets between vox masts, and, guided by a miracle of improbable angles, plows into an unoccupied freight canyon where it explodes like a lesson. No civilian deaths. The shockwave knocks peel from tower sides and tears ragged banners, free to dance like souls briefly escaping bodies. Cultists burst out of another barge in ragged streams. They turn their guns toward queues of pilgrims. Peter is there, impossibly. He slaps at barrels and finds they bend like heated licorice. He shoves men into alcoves with a gentleness that contradicts physics. Bullets veer by instinct away from the most fragile. A grenade lands at his feet. He squeaks, stomps, and the grenade squashes like a berry under a boot and sighs sickly smoke before giving up on detonation entirely. The cultist who threw it stares at his own hand in confusion until an Arbite's baton finds his jaw. Peter does not kill when he can stop. He knocks men out, ties them with ducting, stacks them like lumber behind cover. When traitor Marines in gore-slick plate hammer down onto the plaza, he plants his feet. A chain axe winds toward his face. He ducks with a comedic timing that would get a drummer fired for not hitting the cymbal on cue. The axe whiffs through air that should have a head in it. Peter's fist comes up, not fast, not elegant, simply earnest, and connects with the Astartes' chest. The breastplate dents with an embarrassed honk. The Marine sails back through a stone colonnade that has stood for 4,000 years and crumbles like bread. The second Astartes learns, a just swing to account for foolishness, and brings a power fist around with a crackling halo. That should pulp anything soft. It hits Peter. The world pauses to decide outcome. It chooses compromise. Peter goes through 3 walls and into a shrine to Saint Venia the Tireless, toppling votive candles and a reliquary, which lands square on his head and sits there like a hat. He staggers, woozy, writes the reliquary with an apology to no one and everyone, and runs back out with plaster dust turning him gray. The power fist meets him again. This time he catches it, fingers splaying, palms heating, squeezing with a strength that is not muscle but stubbornness. The capacitors whine and burn out with a smell like regret. The Marine looks at his hand, then at this man who refuses to be killed correctly. Peter shrugs. "Sorry," he says, and punches him in the shin. The shin decides to be elsewhere. The first wave collapses faster than its commanders predicted. Not because they meet superior armament, because they meet an unpredictability that cheats their appetite for fear. The city watches a ridiculous man on the largest screens it has, and in that watching learns that physics, for a day, will entertain mercy. At the War Council that night, voices tangle like hooks. The governor's table is pitted brass and old blood sealed under lacquer. Candle smoke curls toward the filter grates. Vox feeds relay prayers from the districts like waves from a dark shore. Peter eats a ration bar he doesn't understand, with a solemnity that becomes him unexpectedly. He has always eaten when frightened. It is how he tells his hands to stop shaking. "You cannot deny the data," says Admiral Prynne, a woman whose hair has been silver since 30, and whose eyes have never asked permission. Casualty projections were reduced by an order of magnitude. Without this, Peter, the drop barges would have reamed us. The Ministorum priest at her elbow makes the sign of the Aquila with 2 fingers dipped in oil. "Miracles are permissible," he says, "when their provenance is clear." "Is it?" the Inquisitor asks. "No," the priest admits. "Thank you," the Inquisitor says. He watches Peter as a surgeon watches a tumor that speaks the patient's mother's name. This entity's interaction with our world violates known parameters. He is not a sanctioned psyker. He claims no genecraft. Whatever field he projects or embodies, it exerts mimetic distortion on causality. That is dangerously close to how the warp thinks. "I'm right here," Peter says softly. "Yes," the Inquisitor says. "You are. And you saved my people." The words cost him something. He pays. "I will not repay that by flaying you for knowledge. Not yet." The governor turns on him. "Not ever, if I can prevent it." "He's a man, Kestus. Look at him. He laughs at the wrong times, and he apologizes to reliquaries. Don't turn him into a sigil to be disassembled." "We stand in a room full of sigils," the Inquisitor says. "We have learned their lessons by burning myriads of our own. Mercy is a luxury, due only after survival is assured." "Mercy is how survival means anything," the governor snaps. Peter chews. He raises a hand. It is tentative, schoolboyish. "I know I'm not from here, but where I'm from, when people get mad and scared, they do dumb things and call it smart. I'm not smart. I know that, but I can help people not die. If you want me to go, I'll go. If you want me to stay, I'll stay. I don't want to make anyone messed up." He looks for a better word. Cannot find it. Settles. "I don't want to be the reason you hurt somebody you didn't have to." Compassion, the priest says, as if tasting a foreign spice. "Dangerous as hunger." "They'll come back," Admiral Prynne says. "What we faced today was raiding strength. Tomorrow, they will send doctrine." As if waiting for a cue, alarms hiccup, and then find their siren. Auspex crews shout. The picked screens fill with an image that hurts to parse, as if the camera were trying to look at an idea that does not love being known. Colors tilt wrong. Edges wobble. A silhouette steps through the breach torn by the raiders' ships and decides to be here. A giant bird thing, yes, with feathers that are knives and a face that is all eyes and mouths closing over each other. Staff in hand that drips symbols like blood. Robes that do not move in sensible wind, but also a jester with lank hair whose bells ring numbers. A scholar whose ink writes what it means after it dries. A father at a table, empty chair opposite, a plate untouched. It laughs without sound, and the Voxes pick it up anyway. The name that the Inquisitor speaks is 2 parts knowledge and 1 part loathing. A lord of change, he says. A greater demon of Tzeentch. It is not here for slaughter. It is here for story. The Pict shifts. The creature tilts its head as if hearing the narrative charge in the city's fear. It reaches into the air and pulls free a ribbon of laughter, fresh and small. Peter recognizes it. It belongs to the little boy from the tram. The demon tastes it, rolls it in its beak, and eats it. Somewhere in the Habs, a child begins to cry, and cannot stop, because the shape of laughter in his throat has been stolen. "Oh no," Peter says. The ration bar in his hand has become a sacrament he cannot manage. He puts it down. "Kai Shar, the joke thief," the Inquisitor says. "It will seek the source of the anomaly that denied their first wave its terror. It will corrupt it, and then sell us that corruption as salvation, then we do not let it near him, the governor says. We put guns between them. Ships, if we had them, that could fly anymore without shedding parts. They will not matter long, the Inquisitor says. It will speak in meanings, not shells. Peter hears a word the demon did not say. Family. He stands. His chair complains. He does not look heroic. He looks determined the way a man looks when called back to a job he hates because it is time to pay rent. Tell me where to go, he says. They tell him. The tactical briefing is crisp as bone. Kaishar's goal is to twist the anomaly that is Peter into a conduit. Use his mimetic field as an amplifier for warp whim. Spread a new cult, the Church of Laughing Mercy. A creed that tells the terrified they can make pain joke-shaped and therefore survivable. It will be sweet. It will be poison. Once belief routes through a human who has made a city believe in him, the demon can drink. The plan is to bait, to bind, to banish. Priests prepare litanies. Tech adepts solder circuits into torches that are also prayers. An honor guard of sisters. Militant don their keening armor and clip icons to their belts that have been kissed by 1,000 mouths. A squad of the chapter that calls itself the Argent Oath swears to hold a perimeter with bolter discipline and the kind of faith that does not require pleasure to function. A Culexus Assassin, a null in a human shape, stands to the side like a subtraction. Peter listens, mouth a straight line. He is handed a charm stuffed with saint's hair and orders to keep it on his person. He tucks it into his shirt pocket, over his heart, beside a grease-stained receipt from a place that doesn't exist anymore here. He tries to remember the exact shade of Lois's hair when the sun caught it through the kitchen window. He fails, and that failure nearly undoes him. He breathes in oil and incense. He breathes out steadiness he does not feel. They meet Kaishar in the wound yard, a plaza where the hive scars are built into monuments. The demon stands under a statue of a hero, long nameless, and traces equations in the air that ripple into banners for a crowd that should not be here and is. Cultists have appeared like mold in damp. They carry icons of painted grins and knives built to look like props. A man in red plate stands at the demon's shoulder, scarlet, brass, chain runes, a champion of Khorn. His helm is skull-visored. His chain axe is named because it is hungry. He is called Skirath, the line breaker by those who have seen the lines he has broken. He calls himself the punchline ender. Peter steps into the plaza beside the sisters and the Astartes. He sees the champion and feels a memory unspool. A chicken taller than a house, feathers soaked in nightmare, eyes ringed with spite. The memory bites his ankle and makes him stagger. Skirath chuckles. The sound is grinding plates chipped by laughter's bones. Kaishar spreads its arms, and the city's air flips through channels. A mother hears her lost husband's voice. A worker tastes the stew of a childhood before ration. A beggar remembers a night with a warm blanket that never existed. The demon's beak opens, and the crowd leans forward as if toward a hearth. It speaks without words, but meaning pours into heads like light through thin lids. Let me make it easier, Peter Griffin. Let me make you a conduit for kindness. You could save them without breaking knuckles. You could feed them without bleeding yourself. You could fill this hive with laughter that hurts no one. Peter swallows. Laughter never hurt no one, he mutters. Then his mind shows him the boy whose laugh was eaten. The boy crying now, because his body cannot find that shape. That's not true, he says, and surprises himself. Sometimes it hurts. Kaishar tilts its head. Its staff twitches. The equations in the air shift toward sharper symbols. It watches his resistance with fondness, as a butcher watches a calf that kicked harder than expected. Now, the Inquisitor whispers into the bead he jammed into Peter's ear. Now, while it is still stating its thesis. The Sisters of Battle surge, voices raised, hymns slamming into the air like shields. The Astartes advance like mobile walls. Admiral Prin's artillery set on remote batteries, fires shells embedded with burning scripture that break open into nets of light. Skirath leaps to meet the Astartes when bolter rounds ping off his plate and leave scripture etched there that smokes. He spins his chain axe and charges Peter. The demon lets them fight. This is Data. The chain axe, called End of Jest in a language the stars forgot, is a demon weapon forged to sever causality. When it bites a thing, it bites the reason why that thing should have remained unbitten. If you duck, it will have already been where you ducked to. If you parry, it will have already parried your parry. It does not kill people, it kills outcomes. Peter backs up, hands up, palms empty. He grabs a fallen street sign and holds it like a bat. Skirath swings. The air shakes. Peter dodges left, and the axe judges that gauche. It cuts his left into right and meets him there. The blade grazes his ribs. There is no blood. There is an absence, like a laugh cut short before the good part. That hurts worse. His resilience does not apply. A rule has been changed in a margin he cannot reach. He gasps. He thinks of his kitchen table. He thinks of a fight that never ends. He finds something hot that is not anger, but loyalty to a vision of himself that would make his daughter proud. He rushes. He does not out-technique a champion of Khorne. He out-refuses. He takes a blow to the shoulder that should remove the arm. It removes the memory of his shoulder instead, and he swings with that absence as if emptiness were momentum. He trips on his own shoe, a stumble so idiotically timed that the chain axe completes a beautiful arc into a stone saint instead of his throat. The saint, righteous even in debris, collapses onto Skirath's helm and pins him like an insect under a child's glass. The Marine roars and hurls the stone aside. Peter hits him with the street sign. It does nothing. He hits him again and again until the sign breaks and Skirath laughs, blood bright on his teeth. Good, the champion growls, voice like boots in viscera. Hurt me properly. Peter breathes, ragged. I don't want to hurt you, he says. I want you to stop. That is hurt, Skirath says, and swings in a horizontal slash that will unmake whatever it nicks. Peter throws himself back. The blade grazes his shirt. The button flies. With it goes a decade of meals at a table that carried more arguments than it could hold. He hears gravy splatter. Here's a stupid joke he told because silence was worse. He staggers not from pain of flesh, but from vanishing. Kaishar laughs, delighted. It steps toward him, staff broadening, inscriptions fluttering. Inside Peter's skull, whispers wend like ivy. We can fix it. We can bring them here. We can make a quahog and steel and incense. Your wife, your children, your dog. How tired you are of jokes that don't land, of work that doesn't matter. Here, you matter. Here, your laughter makes structures. Sign. Accept. Be our saint of levity. No more bleeding. No more stupid dignity. Just results. The images are so sharp he could cut his palm on their edges. Lois's eyelashes. Chris's slumped posture when he thinks no one watches. Meg at the sink. Jaw set against unkindness she pretends not to hear. Stewie's gaze. Knife bright. Brian's sigh as he judges someone and himself with equal parts carelessness. A dinner table completed. Warm. Whole. He could sit down. He could stop trying in a world built to punish trying. He says. His knees tremble. Skirath's chain axe hums like a fly the size of a truth. The sisters' hymns falter where the words snag on doubt. Men scream dying, and men scream that they have decided not to die yet. The Inquisitor whispers his name in his ear. Not an order. A rope thrown from ashore. Peter. Peter closes his eyes. He sees Meg's face, not the cartoon of her that everyone else sees. Not the punchline, the face of a girl who writes poetry in a house where no one reads. He opens his eyes. No, he says. Kaishar's heads tilt. The plaza's lighting tightens. No? The meanings hiss. No to what? To family? To mercy? To survival without remainder? To me being your tool, Peter says. I'll be me. I'll try. That's all I got. He doesn't yell. He doesn't declaim. He sounds tired. He sounds correct. The demon smiles as much as it can with a beak. Price, it whispers to the air, and the price comes due. The chain axe finds him not as meat, but as narrative, and cuts a slab away. Peter falls to one knee. There is no blood, but the world around him loses a little color. He feels it, like grief for something he cannot name. Collateral bleeds from his refusal. A hab balcony collapses. Men who would have lived fall. He hears bones break. He hears prayers end mid-syllable. He chokes on the knowledge that saying no does not save everyone, and might, in the balancing, kill some. Doubt snarls like knots in rope. Hold, the Inquisitor breathes, voice controlled, because if he lets it get loud, he will use it to order something irredeemable. Hold, the sacred intervenes. It is not a deus ex machina. It is a liturgical escalation. A choir of sisters steps onto the wound yard's rim with a simulacrum imperialis on a litter between them. A statue that has recorded more dying breaths than the air in this plaza. They sing, not pretty, not trained to sweeten. A war hymn, short, gnawed down to sinew by centuries of need. The simulacrum's eyes burn with stolen candles. A gray knight, not armored in silver today but cloaked in words, raises a warding script and speaks a name not of the demon, but of the Emperor, as he was before the throne, when he walked and made decisions that were cruel, because mercy would have cost more worlds than it saved. The air corrodes around that name. Kaishar recoils, not hurt so much as reminded that some stories do not care to be edited. The Culexus steps forward. Where she stands, the warp is offended. Peter feels her nearby like someone had turned his childhood television to static and set it in his lungs. Kaishar's feathers lose their opaline sheen in a radius around her skull helm. The demon's staff sputters. The cultivated meanings gutter. Now, the Inquisitor says again, and this now is different. The torches of sanctified circuitry ignite, and their flames burn in colors the human retina was not budgeted for. Sisters throw chains of prayer that wind around the demon's staff and fix it to a floor that has been reconsecrated with the blood of men who didn't consent to be sacraments, but are. The Grey Knight's warding script becomes a cage, not of bars, but of limits. The Culexus strips power like paint. Kaishar flails color into shape. It hisses in logics. It shoves thoughts into skulls that should not hold them, and finds the skulls hold anyway. It snaps a beak at Peter one last time. Very well. Be a singularity. See what being stubborn buys you in a universe where the stubborn are monuments with names carved by other men. The banishment is not a bang. It is a subtraction. The demon's mass becomes memory, and the memory becomes scent. And the scent fades like laughter does when grief arrives with paperwork. The wound yard is full of aftermath. Skirath roars in frustrated worship and launches at Peter, who stands, shakes, refuses to fall. The Astartes intercept. Skirath meets a wall of bolter rounds and righteous men and backs away, laughing, bleeding prayer. The plaza breathes. Survivors count. The governor arrives, face white, and personally orders the wounded carried in order of bleeding, not rank. The Inquisitor walks to Peter and kneels, so he is not speaking down, because pride must be managed like any other appetite. You refused, Kestis Vale says. You paid. It hurts, Peter admits. Not here. He taps his chest. Not there. He taps the place his shoulder used to remember. Just hurts. It will linger, the Inquisitor says. You have brushed meanings with your skin. They stick. He stands. By the Ordos' authority, and by the writ of a planet not eager to allocate its gratitude to unsafe places, I require your presence before the throne. You will be judged. You will be weighed. If you are found good, you will be given guardrails. If you are found bad, we will thank you, and we will end you. Peter nods. He does not ask for mercy. He would not ask for himself. Okay, he says again. It is a sacrament now, this word. A willingness to be placed on a scale made by other hands. They put him on a ship, not built for comfort, escorted by men and women for whom comfort is an unwise topic. The voyage is monotony and terror, as the warp always is. In the chapel that doubles as a mess, a chaplain sits with him. The man's skull-helmed grimness hides a warmth like a coal under ash. He speaks slowly, and only when words are better than silence. "You are a weapon," he says to Peter over a steel cup that tastes of tin and loneliness. "But perhaps you are also a tool. Tools can mend." Peter watches statuettes on the altar gaze into nothing. "Back home," he says, "I'm not good. Not like a hero. I mess up. A lot. My family. I try. Sometimes, trying doesn't land. Intentions are the coin used in cheap markets," the chaplain says, "but they are not nothing." He leans forward. "Your ethic. State it," Peter thinks. He doesn't overthink. "Family first," he says. "Even if I don't understand what that means all the time." The chaplain nods, satisfied not with the content, but with the shape of an ethic that puts something before the self. "Guard it," he says. "Here, that can turn to heresy if it forgets strangers are also family we have not met yet." A sister hospitaller changes Peter's bandages, though he bleeds only metaphorically. She hums under her breath as hands practiced on burns, and bolter gouges glide over skin that keeps refusing physics. "You make medici angry," she tells him. "We like angry. It means we are trying." Mid-transit, reality shivers like a flock startled upward. The alarms that are voxes for God stutter and chant. Something intercepts them, not in void, but in story. The ship's picket slates bloom with an image before the augurs do. A chicken larger than a tank, feathers greasy with warp light, eyes the rich yellow of old paper catching fire. It pounds through nothing toward their hull with claws that are promises to finish what was started 1,000 episodes ago. "Contact," barks the helmsman. "Hostile metaphysical entity. Unknown class. Alectryon," the Inquisitor says, and the name tastes of ancient mockery made flesh. The endless grudge, a demon bound to a feud. It has smelled our anomaly and tracked him by narrative scent. The ship shudders as reality decides to allow a boarding action that exists only as a concept. Corridors lengthen. Gravity turns and walks away. Doors open onto versions of themselves that contain people going in the other direction. The Argent Oath mount up. The Culexus moves like an absence toward the breach. Peter runs because not running would be a betrayal of himself that would be worse than death. He turns a corner and the thing is there. The chicken looms, comb dripping warp, beak clacking punchlines that are decapitations. Its eyes lock onto Peter's. Recognition floods the space like sewage, rising faster than pumps. They have fought forever. They will fight forever. The knowledge is a ruin and a comfort. The first blow crushes bulkheads. The fight is a slideshow of impacts and wheezing and improvised weapons chosen because they are nearby and funny. Peter hits Alectryon with a bolter that complains because it was meant to shoot, not bludgeon. The chicken pecks. Peter dodges. The peck removes the place he was about to dodge to and leaves him falling sideways through a hymn. "Stand aside," the chaplain orders, arriving with a crozius held like a verdict. "This is not your sin to carry, human." Peter raises a hand. "No," he says. And it is the same "no" he gave a god. "This one's mine." They clash across hull and hold and chapel. Alectryon's claws rip prayer scrolls. Peter stuffs them back between plates with soft apologies. The demon shrieks in a register that strips varnish off icons. Peter winces and throws an entire pew like a man who does not understand pews are for sitting. They crash into the medici, where the hospitaller ducks and keeps stitching a guardsman whose blood doesn't care about metaphysics. Peter slips on that blood and slams into a void cell door. The world blinks once. The Astronomicon flares, a slow drumbeat in the skull. The Emperor's lighthouse beating its presence through warp fog. A custodian presence does not appear. That would be too much grace. Instead, the flare causes the demon to flinch, eyes cringing at a light it cannot make into story. Alectryon pauses long enough for the Culexus to get close, and in the null's cold aura, the fight loses momentum. Even grudges must obey some physics. Alectryon croaks a vow in a tongue that is all talon and salt. Then it rips itself free of the ship's reasserted actual and flees into the blind geometry of the warp, promising to come back when jokes are cheapest. The ship limps on. When Saul's light, thinned by mechanisms and the miles of failure between, fills their viewports, even the Astartes stand a little straighter. The planet that waits is Terra, the fortress, the reliquary, the corpse throne. They descend under guns that have ridden out 10,000 sieges without being unmanned by boredom. They land on tarmac older than oaths. Pageantry arrives to meet them. It is not pomp. It is pressure. The palace is a mountain made from structures murdered for their materials. Cathedrals nest like parasites on titans of stone. Custodes stand in gold that is not gold. It is promise. Silent sisters flit like scissor birds. The smell is incense and oiled weaponry, and old humanity concentrated so hard it becomes mineral. Peter looks up until his neck complains, and then keeps looking because he has to understand scale before he lets it use him. They lead him through halls, where murals depict a history edited to serve a moral. He sees triumphs and tragedies given equal mixing. He passes a fountain that runs with water that is probably water. He passes men kneeling for reasons more complicated than prayer. At the end of one corridor, a door swallows them as a mouth swallows a pill. The room is smaller than he expects it to be, because any room big enough for what waits in it would admit despair. The golden throne hums. Its humming is a mill grinding centuries into paste. It smells like ozone and sanctified rot. Cables run like veins into ancient metal. Light gathers and refuses to be lamps. Peter falls to his knees without the arbites to remind him. He is not religious. He is reverent anyway, in the way a boy is reverent of a father he does not understand, and cannot forgive, and must thank for the fact that the world exists at all. Telepaths, ecclesiarchs, administrators, all assemble and then hold themselves still as if they were stones, placed in a pattern. The custode nearest Peter does not move. His eyes flick, almost kindly, toward a spot on the floor where men often faint. The audience is silent. Then it is sound without air. A voice enters his head gently, which is to say it does not shatter anything it doesn't have to. "You are far from your context," says the voice that is not words, but absolute meaning. "You are a disruption in a tapestry made to hold only certain kinds of threads. You saved lives. You denied a god. You are dangerous. Do you understand this?" Peter does not try to speak with his mouth. He intuits this is not the place for lips. He thinks, and the thought is clumsy but earnest. "I didn't want to be dangerous. I wanted to help. Desire is not destiny," says the voice. "Choice is a wall that must be rebuilt daily, because weather exists." The room tilts. Not literally. His sense of what costs go into which outcome changes angle. He sees a hive city as ledgers in a god's hand. He sees a soldier saved and a child unmade by the ripple he did not manage. He sees the Inquisitor kneeling because a thank you can be a way to keep from doing the necessary. "You will be offered 3 paths," says the voice. "Each wears its own crown of thorns. Listen." The world around him adjusts. On the left, a door opens. Through it, a familiar street under a small sky. A house with a mailbox that has his name, with a dent he never fixed. The world is soft there, stupid in all the ways that soothe and sharpen. He can walk through. He will wake in his chair. He will say, "Whoa," and laugh. And his family will be as he left them, because that is how their story works. The price? Memory fades. This world becomes a dream you will insist was nonsense. The lesson risks being lost. This is mercy for you. It is neglect for them. On the right, a different door. Through it, galaxies. No crest, no leash. He could wander. He could intervene wherever his heart says a thing needs sideways luck. He would become a rumor that makes tyrants double-lock their pride. He would also fracture trust. The Imperium is a bad system that keeps worse systems at bay by being large and predictable in its cruelty. You, as a free agent, would make sects around your method. Civil schism is a sword too often dropped. And in the center, a path paved with regulations stacked like bricks. Sanctioned Servant. Your autonomy becomes conditional. You will be given a sigil to carry and a handler to hate and love. You will be turned into a relic with legs. Your impact would be maximal. Your soul would be budgeted. You would accept boundaries. You would negotiate mercy as an appendix to doctrine, not a replacement. You would save many and fail publicly, repeatedly. It will be the hardest, because it will never allow you to feel purely good again. Peter breathes. He hopes it will not echo. He loves purity. He loved it last when he was a child, and someone he loved forgave him for breaking a window because he was excited. He has not been pure for a long time. He is trying to be decent. The voice shows him the blood prices. In each path, bodies piled in different shapes. In the first, this world's heap is higher. In the second, the heaps are erratic, low in some decades, and obscene in others when cults break out in his name. In the third, the heaps are lower than they might have been, and higher than anyone would choose if choice were a private luxury. His ethic sits heavy in his lap. Family first. He looks at the army of the human species, at its saints and filth, and realizes family is larger than his house. He hates that. He knows he will break a little every time he remembers what that implies. He lifts his head and thinks into the hum. The third, let me help. Put a leash on me so I don't chew on something I shouldn't. But I want one thing. Conditions. A pause. It is not impatience. It is curiosity where impatience would be easier. State them. When someone can be saved without killing them, I get to try. Even if it's stupid. Even if it takes longer. Even if it means we risk a little more. And when I say stop, because something is wrong, my handler has to listen. Not obey. Listen. The silence is a council that includes more than one will. The High Lords, the Sigillites' heirs, the Silent Sisterhood, the Angels in Gold. Inquisitor Vale stands at the threshold of this audience and does not speak, and speaks anyway by existing as a concept. Accepted, the voice says. Mercy conditions will be appended as discretionary protocols. They will be hated, and they will save. You will be hated, and you will save. Do not confuse one with the other. Light thickens. A custodian steps forward, and in his hands is a symbol that did not exist yesterday. A medallion, heavy, ringed in adamantine etched with catechism. At its center, the double-headed eagle gazes in opposite directions. Beneath it, humor that has been through a crucible, a stylized tankard, not jolly but enduring. And beneath that, a small window, just 4 squares, that looks like a toy house and means home extended toward city. Around the edge, in High Gothic, rises cum pietate, laughter with reverence. On the back, in Low Gothic, the words a child could read. Try first. Then again, they dress Peter, not in power armor. The machine spirits would go on strike. In ceramite lightened by faith, in padding that breathes, in plates that have seen hands and lips and tears before battle. His shirt remains under it, stubbornly white where it is not stained. His green trousers disappear into greaves painted in white triangles, so that, seen from a distance, he looks like a herald nobody asked for, and everyone needs. A rosarius hangs at his throat. Its center is a bottle cap, from a beer brand that means nothing and something, encased in crystal and ringed in Santerre. Inquisitor Vale approaches. He holds out a rosette. It is not given. It is lent like a knife to someone whose chopping technique needs supervision. You will operate under my writ, he says, measured. You will have latitude and leash. You will not proselytize. Your cutaways. He says the foreign word as if tasting a tool that could strip screws are to be contained. You will be loved by those who will ask you to betray the whole for their small parts. You will be hated by those who fear that love. You will keep your humor, but you will not use it to mock people for being small in a large world. Save it for the large. Peter nods. Okay, he says. He smiles. It is wry. It is not flippant. Deal. The chaplain, who has watched all this with skepticism that has curdled into reluctant affection, steps forward. He taps Peter's chest with 2 fingers. Gentle, like a father or a sergeant who knows which nerves to strike. Do not let them make you cruel, he says. Will you stop me if I do? I will try, the chaplain says. Then again, Peter bows his head. In that posture, the throne's hum lays a hand on his hair and gives nothing like blessing. It gives assignment. He departs not as spectacle, but as mandate. The palace swallows him and releases him into a sky that is just a roof. Terra watches and forgets. That is its gift. News travels through a galaxy that eats news and starves anyway. On Vigilum-Kyr, children carry scrap icon medallions that show a laughing eagle. The governor signs a decree that uses the word mercy twice and does not apologize to the Departamento for doing so. In the Ash Halo, a new cult whispers about the Saint of Levity and finds itself stamped hard by the Ordos, and then re-educated in a way that teaches them not to use saints as shortcuts. The Eldar, at a far craft world where glass remembers the time before men were a problem, a Farseer closes her eyes and sees a plump human standing between a demon and a child. She laughs once and then pretends she did not. A clown, she tells her warlock apprentice, is sometimes a knife that forgot to be afraid. The Tau note, an anomaly in human memetics, and dispatch a cautious water-caste emissary who will be turned away at gunpoint at 3 different worlds, and will make friends with a child at the 4th, who will grow up to write a law that saves 10,000 lives by reclassifying a punishment. On a planet that is all factories and the worship they demand, a Magos writes a marginal note in subcode in a liturgy that means, allow for improbable success variables at P0.01. Schedule maintenance accordingly. In the Eye of Terror, Kaishar rebuilds itself on a scaffold of resentment. It looks out into the galaxy and sees a man in ill-fitting armor being loved for the wrong reasons. It swallows an emotion that might be jealousy if gods could be human. It turns to an ally. A figure steps into its light, tall, with feathers that are knives, and a face that remembers everything it betrays. We will learn him, the demon says to someone who once called himself cartoonist of fates. We will teach him what humor is when hope sourly ferments. Skirath, mending his helm by pressing plates into the skulls of the men he killed to wear it, carves Peter into the haft of End of Jest, then scratches at it until it reads another name. Enemy, so it is more timeless. Alectryon circles a planet where laughter is a commodity. It vows, aloud and to itself, to finish their fight somewhere with a floor that brings good luck if you land on your feet, and somewhere that is not aware at all. A kitchen table exists in 2 realities at once. In one, a man returns to it and calls his night a nightmare no one will believe, and his wife says, "Eat anyway." And he does. In the other, the chair is empty more often because he is away. And when he is home, he reaches across the table and squeezes hands when words are too expensive that day. And his wife says, "Eat anyway." And he does. His children notice that his laugh, when it comes, has a new edge. Not cruel, resolute. He goes back to Vigilum-Kyr first. Of course he does. He walks in a parade that is not a parade, because God forbid the administratum allow something so wasteful. He visits the child whose laugh was eaten by a god, and sits with him for an afternoon in which he shapes his face into stupid things, until the boy's throat remembers how to make joy. He fails for an hour. He succeeds on the second hour. He says, "There it is." And the boy laughs not at the joke, but at the recognition. Then there is work. Stop a train without killing the driver. Free a hab block from a cult that believes knives are sacraments. Convince 6 of them to put them down. Kill 4 because they would not, and had made their knives into sacraments with other people's blood. Hold a hive spire up while the Ordo's bomb sappers plant a sanctum charge beneath it to vaporize a growth that whispers in numbers. Shake hands. Be hated on pict feeds by a commentator who knows what a tool sells for on a bad day. Shake hands anyway. The Inquisitor travels with him, sometimes ahead, sometimes behind. He writes reports with titles like "On the Controlled Deployment of High-Variance Mimetic Assets" and "Mercy as Strategic Resource." And in the margins, in a hand cramped by respect he refuses to name, he writes, "He asked, then he tried, then again." At night, Peter takes out the medallion the custodian placed around his neck, weighs it in his palm, and looks at the bottle cap encased in crystal. He says goodnight to a kitchen that may as well be a star for how far it is, and then sleeps wearing armor that was made by people who will never not be tired. There are missteps. There is a riot he thinks he can calm with a joke. It does not calm. 3 die. He learns. There is a heretic he thinks he can save. She pulls a pin with her teeth and he shoves her into a stairwell with his hand over the grenade. He lives. She doesn't. He shakes for hours and does not drink, because drinking would make it easier to shake tomorrow. There is an Astartes who tells him he has made a mockery of heroism, and he says, "Maybe," and then he holds a door, while that same Astartes bleeds out somewhere he could have fled but didn't. He is not a hero. He is an employee of hope. When his sigil appears in unapproved places, stitched on a worker's jacket, carved into a gunstock by a guardsman who needs to think his tools are alive, the Inquisitor frowns. Then he looks at Peter, who is asleep sitting up, boots still on, fingers covered in someone else's soot, and he looks again at the sigil and writes a memo that recommends tolerance for unofficial signs of sanctioned morale, with a clause noting that idolatry will be punished. A year passes measured in battle liturgies. Vigilum-Kyr changes shape under a pressure that is not quite policy. The governor, older by law and by care, dies in her sleep. The state funeral is longer than she would have preferred. Peter stands at the back and squeezes the chaplain's shoulder once, and the chaplain squeezes back. Admiral Prynne retires into a council that is meant to be advisory, and becomes, as good councils do, a second government. The ministorum priest who doubted miracles writes a sermon entitled "Laughter After Lament" and delivers it shaking, as if afraid of being happy, and receives no censure because he is careful where his verbs point. On a field where 9 armies have died and learned nothing, Peter faces Kai-Shar again. The demon is smarter now. It does not offer family. It offers exhaustion's cure. He says no. It costs him something new. He loses a memory of his own worst joke, the one that hurt his daughter so badly she didn't talk to him for a week. He tries to remember so he can apologize better. He cannot. He apologizes anyway. Meg says that's enough for today. It is, and it isn't. On a ship painted with a symbol too bright to be anything but a target, Peter meets Alectryon again. They fight through a munitions hold and out an airlock and onto the hull. He slips. He falls. He lands. He stands. The chicken vows a new vow. It never ends. He has made peace with that. Word spreads beyond human tongues. Orc warlords bellow tales of the funny man who doesn't break like he should, and decide en masse to find him because anything that weird should be hit until it either stops moving or tells a better story. A Genestealer cult dreams of a messiah who tells jokes in a voice made from gill tongue and shots of industrial cleaner. Tyranids do not care. Necrons care even less. The galaxy is not remade. It is dented. Pleasantly. That is enough. A lot of days. In a quiet moment between interventions, Peter sits in a hab kitchen with a woman whose hands are cracked by solvents. She pours him something that is almost tea. "You saved my boy," she says, not smiling because her smile broke years ago and never healed right. "You couldn't save my husband. You tried. Then again." That matters. Peter nods. He looks at the small window over her sink, at the little square of sky that, from inside, could be anywhere. He touches the medallion at his chest and realizes the symbol on it is not a promise or a brand. It is a receipt. He will keep paying. Outside, over Vigilum-Kyr, a tear seals itself with a sound like a seam being sewn. Inside, the hive keeps being a place where men on the third shift argue about saints and overtime, and which jokes are still permitted. In a sub-basement, a child laughs in a voice he thought he had lost. In a spire, an inquisitor writes and keeps a second ledger for things he cannot measure. In a chapel, a chaplain prays to a god who is a man who is a machine and asks him to keep the clown from becoming cruel. And in the eye, a demon that steals jokes plans a season of cruelty disguised as charity and feels, for the briefest second, a shiver of something like caution. It whispers to the endless night. He is dangerous because he believes in small things. And the night, which has witnessed empires fall to men who believed in small things like promises, does not answer. Peter Griffin, Sanctioned Servant, bearer of the laughing Aquila, walks into the next emergency with his hands open. He is not invulnerable. He is unlikely in the right direction. His motto is simple, and it costs him more every time he says it. And he says it anyway, under his breath where only he can hear. Family first. The word means more now. It hurts better. There is always another siren. He runs toward it. The next siren is not a sound. It is a shadow that falls across Vigilum-Kyr like a hand blotting a candle. A void ship that parks its malice directly over a district that sells fresh air at festival rates and sells everything else at prices that hope cannot afford. The Auspex says raiders without heraldry, fast knives, slow appetites. The Vox chatter puts a name to them when a flayed banner rolls down the side of a habspire and the crowd inhales as one. Drukhari, the city stiffens, a muscle that has learned this pain before. The governor is dead. The new steward signs orders with a hand that hates itself for shaking. The Inquisitor's rosette gets doors opened before fists can decide to help. Sisters buckle plates on plates and nod to the Culexus, who nods back and makes the room seem thinner around her. Admiral Prin's successor tightens a glove and says evenly, "We have little that they want except the thing they always want." On the bridge of the raider ship, a homunculus slides forward on legs he designed to be elegant, and succeeded. His name is Esyrx of the 13th Smile, and the scars around his mouth have been pulled tight to make a permanent grin that his eyes refuse to join. He sends his voice down on Vox, like oil dripped from a blade. "City of wounds," he purrs. "You possess a resource that interests us. We will take it. Screaming, if required. Laughing, if preferred. We are scholars of both." Peter stands to the side, hands at his sides, the new weight of sanctioned armor making his back behave. He listens to a dialect of mockery that never learned to stop at teasing. He looks at the warrant in his hand, the one that says he may try first, and then at the Inquisitor. Kestis Vale reads him the way he reads battlefields. "Mercy protocol applies," he says, low, "within the perimeter. Past the perimeter. The void owes no one their softness." He cuts a look to the Culexus. "Stay close to him. The Drukhari can make delight a cudgel. They deploy. The raiders do not bombard. They lance down into the streets in needlecraft that skim and lift as if bouncing on nerve endings. They snatch. They cut. They paint sigils of ownership in blood that isn't dry yet. The first scream turns into a second, not because of pain, but because of a drug they brew that helps your throat keep up with their needs. Peter drops into the path of a skimmer in a shower of dust and broken policy. The pilot grins with a mouthful of saw-blade teeth. Peter grips the prow. His arms go long, rubber and will. He plants his heels and brings the skimmer to a stop that is humiliating for a craft built for glee. Raiders spill over the sides. They rise with blades that are also questions. How deep can we go before your flesh learns new dialects? He answers with a shove, a trip, a two-finger tap at the wrist that sends one sword skittering away. He refuses to cut arteries. He refuses to hand them an interesting wound, a witch he dances in. Her mask laughs. She pirouettes, aiming for tendons. He flinches exactly wrong, and her blade slides along a curiosity in his skin that has decided not to be cut today. She tries again. The blade nicks a thread of causality, and he loses a memory of the smell of his backyard after rain. He lets grief pass through him like a pressure wave and steps in close, wraps her in a hug that is not affection and not unkind. She buckles against a hold that is too human to ignore, and he murmurs, "Enough." She goes boneless. Whether from rage or boredom he cannot tell, and he sets her down with her wrists tied in a saint's chain that hisses quietly in her hand. Everywhere, sisters carve harsh hymns into the air. Astartes of the Argent Oath stand behind barricades and make the battlefield small with discipline. The Culexus moves like a subtraction, and the Drukhari scream at absences they cannot get tainted fingers into. Esyrx's voice laces through it, amused, clinical. Delight without cruelty is thin. Let us show you how to thicken it. Peter spots a cage on grav lifts full of children with masks forced over their faces, pumping stimulus and fear. He runs. A raider intercepts with a blade like a sigh. Peter sidesteps, breath clipped, boots sliding. A bolt shell from somewhere else takes the raider's head and plasters the cage with an education it didn't order. Peter swallows and spins the cage down. He pulls masks off with hands that shake and says, "Look at me," to children whose pupils are too wide. He makes a sound he used to make for Stewie when nightmares chased him around the crib. He sticks out his tongue. He crosses his eyes. It shouldn't work here. It does, a little. One child laughs through tears, a broken bell gluing itself. He turns, and a shadow falls over him. Esyrx stands alone in a geometry of space that says he is never alone. Fleshcrafts like attendants flop and slither at his feet. The inventions of a mind that thinks consent is a novelty and not a necessity. He studies Peter with peeled curiosity. "You are a joke stretched over a bone," the homunculus says. "Fascinating. You steal fear. You waste it. Fear is energy. We recycle." Peter breathes in and out through his nose. "Let them go," he says evenly. "Take your ship. Go be. You somewhere else." Esyrx smiles wider without moving a muscle. "I can make your laughter permanent, human. I can pull out the part of you that still knows this is sad and make a sculpture. People will come from craft worlds to admire it. They will say, 'Ah, the form, the pathos, the ridiculousness.' And when I slice a thin curl of it to serve with wine, my guests will moan with understanding. Isn't that mercy, to display your goodness forever, so others can eat it and be nourished?" Peter looks past him at a boy in the cage who is watching deliberately, jaw set, learning whether adults make deals with monsters. He meets Esyrx's eyes again. What is left of them? "No," he says simply. "That's you being hungry." The homunculus tilts his head. The plates in his neck click in appreciation of an honest answer. "Then we must wound something else." He lifts a hand. A micro-drone zips, invisibly small, between sentences. Peter feels it. His shoulder memory twitches. He steps left. A woman behind him, who has been busy not dying all morning, takes the dart in the crook of her arm with a realistic gasp and falls looking betrayed by physics. Peter's stomach drops. Esyrx watches his face for the exact moment responsibility blooms and laughs, delighted. "Yes," he whispers, "carry that. It will make you delicious later." The Culexus arrives, an airless patch. Esyrx recoils, hissing, teeth chattering audibly like fine instruments shaken. Ugly, he spits, and the word means not aesthetics, but ruins to his craft. He steps back and flicks 2 fingers. His raiders move at a word that is a movement. The skimmers shunt, hooks retract. A whip cracks across the sky, and the raider ship's shadow shivers away. They leave with fewer than they came for. It is not victory. It is prevention. It costs. The woman dies despite Medicae. Peter holds her husband's hands and says nothing until the man's jaw stops trying to break itself on grief. Then he says, "I'm sorry. It should have been me," which is untrue the way love is untrue. Accurate beyond fact. In the aftermath, an Arbeits officer drags 3 citizens from under a stair, their wrists wrapped with the rags painted with a half-made sigil. A smiling Aquila, badly copied. One of them is only 17, stubborn in the way that would make him a menace in any army, and a hero in a better world. Cult of Laughing Mercy, the officer says. Been chanting during raids, telling people to make pain into jokes so it can't own you. One tried to stand in front of a witchy and laugh. They're lucky to be alive. Charges? The Inquisitor's hand lifts. The officer's mouth snaps shut. Peter walks to them. He squats, armor creaking. He sees what they think they're doing. He sees where it goes. He keeps his voice gentle. "It's not about laughing at the bad," he says. "It's about not letting it make you mean. That's different. You scared people into acting stupid because you thought you were brave." The older of the 3 flinches. We thought. I know what you thought." He glances at Kestis Vale. The Inquisitor looks like a man stepping on a rake and deciding not to mention it. "Penal labor," he says, flat. "Re-education. No executions, unless you proselytize again. Your medallions are contraband. If I see one, I break the hands wearing it before the hand learns to lie about belief." He cuts a glance at Peter that says, "This is me meeting you halfway. Do not waste it." Peter nods. Gratitude is practical as a splint. A week later, the Ordo Xenos convenes a closed debate. It takes place in a room designed by a man who thought sound could be sculpted. Voices fall into cones and do not bleed. An Inquisitor of a stricter order, Ordo Hereticus, scarlet rosette, scalpel for a smile, lays out a case for removing the anomaly from the board. "He attracts narratives," she says, crisp. Tzeentch watches him like a hobby. Drukhari discover new amusements. The orcs have started naming him. "Everything attracts narratives," Kestis says. "We are in one. The Astronomicon itself is a story we make true with bodies." He reduces death. "That is a metric measured in numbers we can write on paper. And the numbers we cannot?" she asks. Peter is not in the room. He is in a hab stairwell with a child whose voice was stolen by a demon and then returned. He practices laughing with him like it's physical therapy. He makes faces. He tells a joke he knows is bad. The child does not laugh. He waits. He tells the joke again. Changed. Cleaner. Kinder. And the boy's body remembers. From upstairs, someone yells for quiet because misery hates to be interrupted by joy. Peter grins at the ceiling and tells it to file a complaint. The Ordo's decision is a compromise that smells like warmed-over policy. He remains sanctioned. He gains a second handler, a confessor whose job is to watch whether humor curdles, and a rotating squad from the Argent Oath, because faith loves to be near things that pull it, just in case. He receives, quietly, a letter from an Ordo Xenos savant, who writes in brisk, neat script. "We have cataloged 9 instances where your presence degraded the appetite of Xenos that feed on fear. We have also cataloged 3 instances where cult activity increased mimetic branching because of you. Net benefit. Positive at current deployment scale. Do not become a brand." He pins the letter inside his locker beside a child's drawing of him holding up a tram, with arms even longer than his arms get. When the orcs come, it is not because of policy. It is because a freebooter captain heard a story and wanted to see if punching it made a better one. Captain Guffsmasha, the Vox croaks, of the belly laugh. His ship is painted in checks and bad jokes. It drifts over a refinery moon that feeds Vigilum-Kyr's lights and threatens to stop feeding them. He hails the Habcom like an uncle at a wedding. "Oi, funny Yumi, come out and play." Peter goes because he has to, and because he is curious what it looks like when fun is cruelty in green. The fight on the refinery gantries is almost farce. Orcs charge. He sidesteps. They fall into vats and climb out laughing with bits of him between their teeth that aren't there because parts of him decide not to be parts when the story asks them to. He grabs a power claw with both hands and squeezes until the cackling stops being fun and starts being complicated. He loosens. The orc blinks and says softly, "That's not how this goes." "Maybe it is today," Peter says, and flings the orc into a pile of his friends with just enough force to bruise pride, not bones. Captain Guffsmasha stomps up on legs like pillars that insisted on being funny. His hat is a crime. His gun is a crime. His smile is a crime that grew into a fashion. "Use da one what don't break right," he rumbles, delighted. "Do it again." Peter shrugs. His armor squeaks. "You first." They trade blows. The gantry shivers. Oil fumes rise like old ghosts. Peter takes a hit that would have removed a torso and loses the memory of a birthday party where no one came. He staggers. He gathers himself. He punches the captain in the belly with a blow that is honest. The orc laughs until he coughs. "This is fun," Guffsmasha booms. "We do this again, later, on fire." He gestures and his boys back up, grumbling happily. The refinery survives with new dents. The freebooter ship spins away, broadcasting a song about a human who fights like a squig and smells like burnt bread. The refinery workers hang a banner after. It is tasteful as banners go. A white aquila whose beaks almost curve into smiles but do not. Below it, a pint glass, careful lines, no froth. Under that, 4 squares of a window. Under that, in blocky letters, "Try first, then again." Kestis Vale stands under it and does not smile because he saves smiling for rooms that can be trusted with it. "You are close to idolatry," he says to the foreman. The foreman, a woman with hands like wrenches, glances at Peter and then at the Inquisitor. "We know," she says. "We're busy, not stupid." The Culexus watches this and, if she feels anything, does not show it because she is built to take feeling away. Later, when no one sees, she tucks a scrap medallion into a seam of her suit. It burns her, very faintly, and she accepts the lesson. He keeps moving. Worlds ripple under his boots, then settle. On Canonis Antium, he braces a cathedral arch with his shoulders, while a squad evacuates reliquaries, and a man with a ledger insists on a receipt. On Ferrum Delta, he convinces a tech priest to open a door for civilians before recalibrating a reactor, and learns 3 new ways to be called reckless in Binaric. On a ship whose name is a list of promises not kept, he argues with an Astartes chaplain who tells him that mercy without penance is theft, and he answers that penance without room to breathe is just new sin with better grammar. They compromise on letting 3 men live, work, pay. They do not write it down. It happens anyway. When Kaishar returns, it does so with less theater and more science. It coils into the vitae quartier of Vigilum-Kyr, where the city keeps its medici and its debtors, and whispers to the tired that rest is a story they can write if they sign here. It asks Peter to pick between saving 10 now and losing 100 later, or allowing 10 to die so that 1,000 can believe this place still works. It is not fair. It is never fair. He chooses wrong quickly, then corrects painfully, then stands with Kestis Vale afterward over a list of the dead, and does not argue when the Inquisitor writes one more name than Peter thinks belongs there. "Why?" Peter asks. "Because tomorrow I will need the man who reads that name to trust me," Kestis says, voice abraded. Trust sometimes has to be fed lies to grow. Then you prune them later. It is ugly gardening. Peter thinks of his own gardens. Jokes told to patch silences, distractions thrown to cover selfishness, apologies stapled to bad habits. He nods slowly. Don't let it be the only thing you grow. I have you, Kestis says, then regrets the softness and adds, until I don't. The Argent Oath adopt him the way they adopt useful artillery pieces that talk back. They teach him to move when they move and stop when they stop. He learns their names the way they use them, without first names, like accusations and like prayers. Brother Sergeant Halvor, who learned to smile with half his mouth after a burn, took the other half. Brother Tadrin, who writes letters to a mother who died on a planet he will never visit again. They give him a combat knife engraved with a motto he cannot pronounce. He does not carry it most days. He carries it the night he learns that a man he spared took that gift and turned it into leverage on people who could not afford it. He takes the knife to that man's door and sits on his stairs until dawn. Then he knocks. Then he goes in. He comes out with blood on his gloves and eyes that cannot decide whether to be angry or alive. He cleans the knife and returns it to the Astartes without explanation. They do not ask. News reaches him like weather. The Tau emissary refused 3 times gains an audience with a mid-tier official. She tells him of worlds where humans live under blue banners and do not starve as often. He says words about corruption and betrayal and the long cost of small comforts purchased from strangers who do not forgive trespass. He thinks about children laughing in classrooms. He thinks about guardsmen falling in place. He sends her away with tea and a sealed letter that says, "Find the small places where big promises bruise. Go there. Help there. Do not wear your flag." He signs it with a name that has become a job title. A custodes appears on Vigilum-Kyr one evening like a cathedral learned how to walk and came to see its parishioners. He watches a patrol that includes Peter do the stupid thing and the brave thing in quick succession. He inclines his head by a degree that means an essay in their court. Later, Peter finds a scrap of paper folded into his medici kit that says, in a hand that could engrave granite, "Laughing is not derision. Keep that." He places it under the bottle cap in his medallion, and the Saint-Hair rustles, as if approving. On a balcony overlooking an abyss that used to be a street before a shell asked it to be honest, Peter and the Inquisitor share a meal of ration bars doctored with a pinch of spice stolen from a commissary who had more than his share. The wind climbs the hive's sides like regret. The city's lights blink and hold. The laughing Aquila emblem on a wall across from them has been painted over by order. Someone has drawn it back in the dust with a fingertip. "You could have gone home," Kestis says, not as accusation. "You saw the door." Peter shrugs. His plate scrapes. "I still might," he says. He doesn't know if it's true. He likes leaving it open. "For now, I'm here." Kestis nods. "For now is how this place is held." They sit. They eat. They listen to sirens not sounding for once. In the quiet, Peter takes the medallion off and studies it. The double-headed eagle. The tankard. The window. He rubs a thumb over the edge where a child's teeth have tested it and not quite broken it. He looks up and sees the symbol reflected in a window across the gap, his own blurred reflection under it. He lifts the medallion to a line. For a heartbeat, the 2 eagles, one painted, one carried, line up, and the heads almost look like they're about to laugh. Far away, in a place that does not have distance, Kaishar watches him align things and paces. Alectryon scratches a vow into the hull of a ship that does not exist until someone tells the story of it. Esyrx sketches a sculpture in a book, bound in living skin, and writes beneath it, with languid disdain, "The joke that refused me." Captain Gufsmasha yells at the sky to send him the funny Umie again, and the sky says later, and the orc says, "Later is good. Later is a lot." Reports filter in. In an underhive on a different world, a group of workers form a club for telling stories about the time they almost died and didn't. And the rules say you cannot make yourself the hero. You can only be the witness. In a shrine, a priest rewrites an old homily so that the word laugh appears once, carefully placed between lament and labor. And no lightning strikes him. In a command room, a junior officer writes, "Try first," on a whiteboard that isn't white anymore, and watches as a major doesn't erase it, and a colonel pretends not to see. Peter sleeps poorly. He always did. He wakes to knock at the door and puts the medallion back on. Heavy, easy now in its weight. The knock is a rhythm he knows. Kestis Vale, reserved urgency. There's a new tear in the sky. Different. No light, no heat. Just a feeling that a thought wants to be true enough to touch. He stands. He straps his plates. He picks up no gun. He steps into the corridor. The chaplain is there, Crozius in hand, eyes warm under a skull. The sisters line the hall like choices. The Astartes nod with grim affection. The Culexus inclines her head, the gesture empty of emotion by design, and full of it by interpretation. The Inquisitor looks at him and does not nod, because that would make this tender. Instead, he offers a data slate with a map that has too many red circles and says, "Dry as a ration bar. Try first." Peter grins despite himself. Then again, they move. Voxes crackle. The city groans. The sky peels like paint. He looks up into whatever is coming and squares his shoulders under a symbol that was a joke and became a job, and might someday be a memory carved under a name no one can agree how to pronounce. He hopes someone will write it down right. He hopes someone will tell the story wrong in a way that helps. He runs. The medallion thumps his chest in time with his feet. The laughing Aquila on the wall catches a wash of emergency light, and for a moment the double heads throw long shadows that look like wings. The last thing he thinks before the sirens swallow thought is not a prayer and not a plan. It is a promise he mutters to keep the weather in his head from turning bad. Family first. He means the city. He means the galaxy. He means the kitchen with the window, and the dented mailbox, and a dog who sheds to cope with stress. He means the people whose names he doesn't know, and the ones he does. He means himself. Last, when there is time, the tear opens. He leaps. The story keeps going. Stubborn